Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. It's way too early for a first look on FanDuel, but I'm here for a way too early first look on FanDuel. We're going to take a look at a lineup for week 1 in a large field tournament is what we're going to try and build this lineup for, using all the correlation tips that we talked about in how to build better lineups for large field tournaments. You guys said you wanted a way too early FanDuel first look on multiple videos, so here it is for you. You better click that like button. You better subscribe to the channel and leave me a reply down below. So I'll give you a couple seconds to do that. We're going to get to the video right now.
He's a legend.
As always, through August and into September, Rotowire has partnered with us here. So if you wanted to do me a solid that will cost you absolutely nothing, in fact, it's the opposite of costing you money, rotowire.com has now offered a 10-day free subscriber to our community. So most certainly click that link in the pinned comment down below, rotowire.com/smizzle. That will take you to rotowire.com, give you access to every single tool that they have on their site, whether you're playing daily fantasy MLB, whether you're playing daily fantasy preseason, Canadian football, MLB. If you're trying to draft your best ball teams, if you're trying to draft your home league, you have 10 days of access, full access, everything that you want on rotowire.com. Go help out the people that help us out here on this stream. If you would be so kind as to show them how great a community we have, all you have to do is click the link and sign up for your 10 free days over at Rotowire. Looking over at FanDuel on this video, this is our way too early first look. We kind of went through this. I record all these live on Twitch, as you guys know. So we kind of went through and clicked at a bunch of things. FanDuel extremely cheap across the board on a variety of different players. There's some players that when you look at them versus their DraftKings price that are higher. Like the first one that stood out was Kyle Pitts is the 3rd highest price tight end on DraftKings. He's like the 9th price tight end on DraftKings, or 3rd highest on FanDuel, 9th highest on DraftKings. So a little bit more expensive on this site, but $6K for a tight end who is in the role that he is in is definitely not too much, or something that's going to be exorbitant. So it's a price that we can afford if we choose to go that route. If you have not watched the video on building better lineups, definitely go do that for tournaments. I take a look over at Adam Levitan's article on ETR, looking back at the data from last year and comparing that to the data from the 3 years prior on how to put yourself in the best position to win or to get into the top 100 more frequently on DraftKings. Now, look, it's going to take a lot to get into a Millionaire Maker on any site, right? Into the top 100. You're talking about for week 1, 1.38 million runners in this tournament. It's a lot. So getting into the top 100 is certainly against you. You know, it's against the odds for you to even be in the top 100 or the top 1,000. The point is to get yourself there with as much frequency as you possibly can by sticking to very simple rules. We're going to stack or double stack our quarterback, double stack preferred. We are going to have a bring back player. Bring back player is defined as somebody that is opposing that stack. So if we're playing players on Kansas City, we're going to bring it back with somebody on Cleveland to try and get that push and pull. If that game does shoot out, we capture all of the volume and hopefully all of the touchdowns that are involved, or as many of them as we possibly can, to get that high fantasy score. Because if we're using or utilizing 4 of our spots out of the 9 that we're going to roster here on FanDuel, I only have to be right about one thing, and somebody that has no correlated players across those 4 slots on their lineup has to be right about 4 things. Much easier to be right about one thing rather than 4. So we're going to try and correlate our lineup with our primary stack, double stack, and bring back. We are also going to try and build a secondary stack into this lineup so that we only have to be right about 2 things and not 6. The more correlation that you can build into a lineup. If those things click for you, it's the tide that rises all boats, or raises all boats, and everybody shoots to the top in that lineup combination that you have, and then you're going to build it across however many lineups you're going to build. Not everybody's going to max out this tournament. Some people are going to single enter it. We're going to have a video coming out soon on smaller field tournaments and how to attack them. Not really bankroll management, but like you're going to have a better chance at finishing in the top, 1% of a tournament that has 500 people as opposed to one that has 1.4 million people in it. So react accordingly and change your lineups and build your lineups accordingly. You have to adjust. I do like going after running quarterbacks. Kyler Murray is extremely expensive in week 1 at 8,400, but the QB2 last year with a really inefficient year passing the ball. Josh Allen, more rushing touchdown oriented, not really a running quarterback with as many yards as he had on the ground, as many attempts as he had per game. Aaron Rodgers coming off a ridiculously efficient season, one of the best of his career in his first season, over like a 9 touchdown percentage in like 6 or 7 years. Don't think that that's going to sustain, but he is still amazing and is going to put up numbers. Anyway, Tannehill, also a mobile quarterback who contributes with his legs and will throw in some touchdowns here and there. I do like the fact that there are 3 places that you can go in this offense, whether it's going to be Julio Jones, whether it's going to be Derrick Henry. He's negatively correlated with Tannehill because of how few passes he catches. Can we please throw Derrick Henry like 1 pass per quarter this year? That's just been my ask for 2 straight years. I don't know if we can do that. If somebody can forward this video off to the coaching staff in Tennessee, that would be great. I know I have some friendly places in Nashville. If y'all could like hit up coach and be like, hey, why don't you just throw the ball to Derrick Henry once a quarter? This guy on YouTube said it would probably be a good idea. I bet he'd try it. Why not? Let's give it a shot. Somebody take care of that for me and do me a solid. Jalen Hurts, I think, is accurately priced here. The issue is who to double stack him with. I would probably only single stack with Jalen Hurts because I don't know, aside from an outlier game, the chance for him to throw 3 or more touchdowns in any one game, throw 3 or more. I believe he can be accountable for 3 touchdowns in a game, but that would mean that he threw for 2 and ran for 1, or ran for 2 and threw for 1. I think those 2 outcomes are going to be far more likely than him throwing for 3 or throwing for 4. So for him to be able to carry a double stack, it's going to be somewhat rare, but that will hold down the percentage of any double stacked lineups that he has. And if he does happen to hit one of those outcomes and you nail those 2 pass catchers that have 3 of his 4 touchdowns on that day, you have yourself a massive leg up, assuming that the bring back player is going to put up numbers as well. 3 players that I think are underpriced. 2 of them are statues. Matt Ryan, going up against Philly in this spot. And as much as we want to attack through Matt Ryan, through Calvin Ridley, who I think is going to absolutely explode this season, and Kyle Pitts, who is the shiny new toy on the block, Matt Ryan does nothing but throw for a ton of yards and a ton of touchdowns every single year. And despite his statue nature, it's harder for him to be the guy that's going to lead you to the top of the GPP field because he's got to do it 100% with his arm. He's got to throw for 4 or 5 touchdowns as opposed to throwing for like 2, running for 65 or 70 yards and running for 1 touchdown. Much easier for the running quarterbacks or the mobile quarterbacks or the pocket plus guys to get you there. Kirk Cousins, same sort of statue outlook, but looking at the schedule for the Minnesota Vikings, I bet you that Kirk Cousins, I have not written or outlined Best Buys for week 1 yet, but I'm going to bet you that Kirk Cousins is probably going to be in Best Buys more often than not for the first half of the season, to the point that you guys are going to get sick of reading about Kirk Cousins, because if you look at their schedule and the opponents that he's going to be facing, 6 out of the first 7 weeks of the year, it's absurdly soft. So like an actually perfect best ball quarterback if you wanted to pair him with like Trey Lance, who has a great run-in, and you think that he may not be the starter early in the year. Kirk Cousins is a great QB2, QB3 to be drafting, who has, fantastic upside early in the year from a best ball point of view, and way too cheap from the perspective of DFS. But I'm going to go with Joe Burrow. I think they're going to throw the ball as much or more than any other team in the league. Probably won't finish if he stays healthy. And I know that there have been some negative reports about his confidence on the knee a couple of days, and it made all the rounds on Twitter. And then the next day, oh, he's being inefficient. He's not stepping up in the pocket. He's thinking about his knee. And then the next day, he was like 13 of 14 in those same 7-man drills and had no issues with his knee, but that didn't get circulated as much. So we're living off of the bad news, but not celebrating the good news. And I think there's going to be ups and downs with Joe Burrow this year. But I think that their look is going to be get the ball into Joe Mixon's hands 25 times a game or more, with 5 of those at least coming on targets. Like he should get 5 or 6 targets every single week. And Joe Burrow is going to throw it a ton. And who is he going to throw it to? So we want to circulate our lineup around this game for right now. So if we're going to start with Joe Burrow, we got to take a look at wide receivers. And the 3 guys are Higgins and Boyd and Chase. They don't really have a tight end that's going to take up a large market share of the targets. I think that the news around Jamar Chase not being able to separate is all a big smokescreen. I think that the kid's going to be fine. I'm willing to be wrong here. If you'd rather not have him and go with Tyler Boyd, great. I think that T. Higgins is going to be a difference maker. I think that Jamar Chase is going to be absolutely amazing. You could bring this back with Justin Jefferson or Adam Thielen, but based on how soft the pricing is in week 1, I'm going to bring it back with Dalvin Cook, knowing what he did last year and what he projects to do so far coming into this season. He's going to get all of the carries inside the 5, so massive touchdown equity against that Cincinnati Bengals front line, as well as carrying the ball 20 to 30 times a game, as well as being somebody who's included in the passing game. So if this game does blow up, this is going to be a high likelihood of players who will blow up together. And that's exactly what I'm looking for with this sort of lineup, where I'm going to correlate heavily around those guys. I mentioned another game that I wanted to target. Irv Smith is somebody that I like too this year, but like, I'm not going to include him in this particular lineup. I'm not saying he's bad for week 1. If I don't include somebody that you like in this lineup, please don't think that, like, you know, that I don't like them. It's one lineup. We'll get more involved as we get closer to the season kickoff. Travis Kelce's the highest price guy. Totally get it. George Kittle, volume's probably going to be down a little bit. There's always cheaper options at tight end. Logan Thomas, look at this. Logan Thomas price is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th highest tight end on the slate. Hawkinson, I typically don't like to play tight ends against San Francisco. I do think his volume is going to come up, but DraftKings, we need touchdown equity. Or sorry, FanDuel, we need touchdown equity rather than just volume, because it's harder to get there at half PPR than full PPR. Plenty of guys that you can go to cheap. Ertz looks like he's going to be the primary guy in Philly this year. You could plug him into this lineup if you want to, but I think that there's 2 really cheap options that we can go with. One, starting with Kyle Pitts at tight end, who in theory should step into the Julio Jones role in this offense, albeit I don't believe he's going to get Julio Jones volume. But if he catches like 17 to 18% of the market share, that's going to be enough for him to pay off this salary at $6K. And because of his size, massive touchdown equity, which means that we want to correlate him. So highlighting this game over here, Devonta Smith or Jalen Reagor. Reagor having himself a really good camp so far. I posted a TikTok on that ridiculous one-handed twisting up in the air catch that he made in the end zone this week. I believed in the kid last year. He was really hurt. We're going to see if he can pick it up this year. Calvin Ridley has a chance to be the overall wide receiver 1 by the end of the season. Absolutely love him. Not going to use him in this lineup today. If you wanted to go with Ridley and Ertz as opposed to Pitts and Devonta Smith, where I'm going to land, I totally get that too. I'm going to try and capture the value here and the push and pull from 2 guys that I think as rookies are going to command a large bit of the market share. That leaves us with an awful lot of money. Let's plug in a cheap defense. Not from that game. Let's just plug in a cheap defense. Anybody that's down here, fine. Whatever. Leaving us with $8,650 average to spend. Sure. Give me Derrick Henry for $8,900, leaving me with $8,400. Let's check out the flex. We can go with a third correlation here, I believe. Getting DeAndre Hopkins. I don't need a tip on how to enter the lineup, FanDuel. Thank you very much. Joe Burrow throwing to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, bringing them back with Dalvin Cook. Derrick Henry at running back and the massive amount of volume that he is always going to get, albeit, again, if you're in Tennessee, strap a note on a pigeon. Get it to coach. 1 pass a quarter. That's all we want. 1 pass a quarter to Derrick Henry. 4 targets a game. That's it. That's all we want. It's not a big ask. Small ask. Big upside. That's all we're looking for. Correlate him with DeAndre Hopkins, and a third correlation between Devonta Smith and Kyle Pitts in a game with a really high total. Pick your cheap defense to try and get there. It doesn't have to be the Lions. I just randomly picked one. But find one that you like for the amount of money that you have left. And that's how I'm going to go about building large field tournament lineups for week 1 NFL on FanDuel. Look out for another video right there.
He's a legend.